everyone. I am Melissa Forziat. I'm a keynote speaker and the host of this Daisy Jones and the Six Rewatch podcast. When I speak, my topic is something I call Take the Doughnut, which is another way to say carpe diem, and it's all about going after the things that you want in life. Something I wanted to do this year was rewatch the show Daisy Jones and the Six and talk about it with other people, with you who are watching this right now. So here we are, and today we're going to talk about Daisy Jones and the Six, episode 4, track 4, which is called I Saw the Light. Now, this was part of a batch of 3 episodes that came out on March 10th, 2023. This is the first of those 3. And it was written for television by Stacey Traub and directed by James Ponsoldt. He's directed all of them so far. And here's the description that sums up the whole thing. Look at Us Now, Honeycomb, becomes a huge hit. The band and Daisy are invited to perform at a music festival in Hawaii, much to Billy's chagrin. Despite him planning to introduce her after the 3rd song to perform their duet, she storms the stage early and receives praise from the audience. Billy, feeling threatened, tells the press that Daisy was a one-time collaborator. Simone learns that the record producer who harassed her took her vocal track and had another performer lip sync to it. Daisy persuades her to move to New York to pursue her music career and be with Bernie. Feeling lonely despite her newfound success, Daisy breaks into her childhood home, is arrested, and is bailed out by Karen. Talks arise of Daisy officially joining the Six, though Billy protests the idea. Camilla invites Daisy to a party, and during a blackout, Daisy joins the Six in a musical number with the guests. Shortly before the power returns, Graham kisses Karen, but she kindly rejects his advances. Camilla helps Billy see that Daisy is exactly what the Six need to become superstars. I mean, these summaries are pretty good. There's maybe one little detail there that I don't know that I totally agree with how it was presented, but for the most part, that is a recap of what happened in this episode. But we're going to get into the scene-by-scene breakdown here because there's a lot to say about the details. Really fun episode that really, the first few episodes set up the story. It sets up the characters. It brings us to the point in time when they're really in each other's orbit entirely. And now in episode 4, we're answering this question of, will Daisy join the Six for more than one song? And that's an important milestone to hit here. It's I think an important thing to spend a whole episode on, because just because they work together once does not mean they'll work together in the future. And obviously there are big questions around that. So I think it is appropriate to dedicate an episode to this very question. We start off with the opening credits, and then we move into an establishing shot of Bob's Big Boy, the original double-deck hamburger. And Eddie, Warren, and Graham are coming out. They've just had a big meal. They're reveling in that, and they hear a car pull up, open top, so they can hear the song that's playing, and it's "Look at Us Now." And what I like about this opening is we're going to get sort of a few vignettes of people experiencing hearing their song on the radio, or maybe I should say several, because I think we get 4 vignettes of everybody hearing their song on the radio and what that experience looks like. And I like that they broke it up this way. So the first group is going to be Eddie, Warren, and Graham. They've just come out from a big meal. We're hearing the song on the radio. Eddie's like, wait, is that? And Graham goes up to the girls who are driving. He's like, oh, what's the station? And they tell him, and it's pandemonium for these 3. They're so excited. They find out it's KHJ radio. Graham pats the car. He runs off. All the guys are starting to run in whatever direction they're going. Warren's laughing. He says, that's us. That's us on the radio. You better turn it up. This is the best part. Then we get to that next vignette. We're going to see Karen. Karen is currently at a record store. She's looking through records, and a girl comes up to the register, and she says to the cashier, "Hey, is this the one with 'Look at Us Now'?" She's holding an album. The cashier says it is now. Karen turns and she's surprised. She's heard somebody requesting her song. The girl's like, I don't have enough. She doesn't have enough money. She's so disappointed. And Karen comes up just so delighted by this moment. Karen pulls out her wallet. She puts money on the table for the girl. And she says, she says, here. And the girl's like, oh, thanks. Karen nods. She says, don't mention it. She leaves smiling like she has a secret. I think Suki Waterhouse did a really good job with that direction there. I think I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but I've done improv, and one of the things that you might do in an exercise is, or at least I've done this exercise a couple times where you get a couple people up on stage and somebody whispers a secret to both of the people on stage or however many people on stage. So everybody on stage is supposed to have a secret, whatever that secret is, and they just hold on to it for the entire scene. It doesn't come out in the scene, but they're supposed to be thinking about it for the whole scene. And you're supposed to see how that kind of influences you. And I love that I was able to see the influence of Karen's secret in this record store. She knows that this girl is holding her album and that nobody else in the room knows that it's her album. And she walks out with that secret. But as Karen walks away, the girl looks down at the album cover. She sees the picture of the band. She puts two and two together and she's like, oh my God. That's a really cool story that somebody would have if that happened in real life. Okay. And I also love that the part of the song when they get up to that part, when they get up to this vignette, no one knows who you are. Perfectly lined up, editing magic, and beautifully done. We're then going to see Daisy's reaction. Daisy isn't hearing her song on the radio, but it's been put into the jukebox at the diner where she works, and she's got her arms are full of plates. I've served before and I was never comfortable enough to try this. Most people did, so I guess I was not a good server. But Riley Keough nailed it here. She's got so many plates in her arms. And maybe it's unfortunate for this scene that she has that many because she hears her song playing in the diner and she just dumps all the plates down on a table and she runs over to the jukebox and she sees her song on it and it says, "Look at us now," parentheses, honeycomb, which must be one of the many things that irks Billy because his name for the song was Honeycomb. And Daisy was like, isn't that already taken? And here it is. It's in the jukebox, and the primary name is Look at Us Now. He must hate so many things about this. But anyway, we're still on Daisy right now. She gasps. She's so excited. She looks back at the people like, do you know that's me? Yeah, and then we're hearing, oh, we could make a good thing bad. By the way, we're now going to get to Billy. We're going to see the last vignette here with Billy. He enters the kitchen of, the band's home, and Camilla and Julie are in there. Camilla is making family breakfast for for whoever. Let's face it, though, it's going to be everybody. Billy greets Julie, is like, hey, baby. And then he goes over to the radio, hears his song playing, and he just turns it off. Everybody else totally stoked to hear the song. Billy, done with it. That's it. He doesn't want this song anymore. Am I on the radio? Nope. So he turns it off. Camilla's like, we were listening to that. He looks back at her like, no, come on. Interview Billy says, I wrote a song about hope, survival, the perseverance of love. And she turned it into a celebration of doubt, uncertainty. I effing hated that song. He says, but apparently I was the only one. I mean, he has at least enough awareness to know that. Of course, it was making them money. He can tell it's popular, right? But I get it, right? We talked a lot when I was unpacking the last episode, I talked a lot about what it must have been like for Billy in the studio when he realized that his words had been changed and what they had been changed to was very much the opposite of his intention when he wrote the song, but probably stung so much because it was holding up a mirror and showing what he really probably meant and was afraid to say. And it's the part of him that Camilla basically said, you never get to show this to me ever again, when she had found him having an affair way back. So, he's been trying to hide that part of him. And here's Daisy saying, yeah, sorry, no. I see it, and this is a weak song without it. And so Billy wrote the song with one intention and one name. It's now got a different name primarily and a different intention. And here it is, really popular. And here's Camilla liking it. So it's like this, it's got to be confusing. Um, but that's what's happening. That's the news, whether you like it or not. So we're gonna go back to the 70s. Billy's getting himself some water. Camilla's like, oh, poor baby has a number one single. It must be so hard. I mean, when you put it that way, well played, Camilla. Billy rubs Julia's head. He's like, well, you think it's frustrating too, don't you, Jules? And we get a little bit of Julia fussing. Uh, well-placed sound addition there. Billy's like, see, Jules agrees with me. Graham's going to come in and he's going to grab one of, I don't know, whatever Camilla's making. I don't know if he's holding like a piece of toast or something like that. And he's eating it, shoving it in his mouth. And Camilla's like, well, you can wait. But no, that's not going to happen. Everybody else is going to start piling in and grabbing food too. Warren comes in. He grabs something from the plate Camilla's bringing to the table. I mean, let's just face it. Everybody's eating this breakfast. Graham says they live in the back house so that Camilla doesn't have to feed you vultures, but he's eating. I mean, a little self-awareness here, Graham, a little bit. Karen's like, when was the last time anybody went through the mail? They have a stack of mail. Warren says to Karen, I thought that was your job. Oh, Karen says, my job? Warren says, also, that pile of stuff in the sink is getting pretty big. She throws something at him. And he's like, hey. And there's laughter, but not from Karen. Okay. I've been in rooms where this happened. I'm going to say there's even parts of my family culture where like men say things like this and women go, oh, and they like fake punch them or something. It's gross. It's gross. Because I think people mean it when they say this stuff. You don't say this stuff if you're not willing to have this attached to your voice. Like, just don't. Okay? It's not a good look. Karen's not laughing. Karen isn't laughing. Okay, men? Um, anyway, be that as it may, nobody has actually read this mail. And so she's looking at this stack and she's like, wait. She's looking at these return addresses. She says, does anybody know what these are? She holds them up. She's smiling and they all start grabbing for them and opening them. And they start cheering and overlapping voices. And Warren's like, I'm rich. Interview Warren says $600 went a real long way in those days. For context, that's pretty impressive. I'm curious how much the house cost that they were in. To get a little bit of perspective on it. I don't know if anybody would have any figures like this that they can share to give us a rough idea of what we might be looking at in terms of how long away $600 actually would have gone. But I'll take Warren's word for it. We go back to the scene. They're all laughing and they're cheering, and Billy shows Camilla his check and he kisses her. They've made it. We're gonna hear interview Billy's voice while we're still seeing the scene. He says, even though I wrote most of the songs, we split the publishing evenly. And then we see him. He says, I thought, why not? I mean, we were family. This feels the most like the way I feel about some of Interview Eddie's stuff, where they'll be like, I mean, you're not still upset about it, are you? No, you have to let that stuff go. Like, Interview Billy, I think, in this moment, was really putting it on. Like, I think, yes, it is a great kindness that he's splitting the publishing with all of his bandmates, despite the fact that he wrote the song well, first of all, he didn't write the song himself. But the rest of the band was not necessarily part of the lyrical contribution. So he's splitting the publishing with them, and that is lovely. But I also feel like Billy is a guy who thought to himself, I'm going to give this one to them so I can win the next 7 battles. I think that was a conscious thought from him. I don't know. That's my read on Billy. And here he is in this interview being able to say, see this thing I did? Because we're family, you know? They all deserve that. But then like he's still in control of when he gives and when he taketh away. You know? That's Billy. Um, so we're gonna find out what they bought with all this money. Interview Graham says, first thing I bought, a surfboard. Interview Eddie says, couple of amps, fuzz pedal. Interview Karen says, stock market, obviously. Interview Warren says, okay, there was this beautiful fur vest in a shop down in Venice. All of this tracks, except I maybe would have thought Karen, I mean, Karen, you know, Karen's response is going to be something, she has a good head on her shoulders, but I maybe would have thought it would have been something music related. But if she has a keyboard, if that's all she needs, maybe you just invest it. But everybody else, it kind of tracks. You know, Graham bought something to play with. Eddie, but that still has function. You know, Eddie bought something for his music. Karen made a financial investment, and Warren, you know, fur vest. I feel like all of this tracks. We're going to see what Billy bought. So Billy closes the car is in front of a house we haven't seen. Billy is closing the door. Camilla's standing in front of the car. She's looking at this house. He points back to it. She's like, wait, Billy, did you? We're hearing the song Satellite of Love here, which is a nice choice for this small scene that we're getting. He picks her up. He spins her Satellite of Love. Did you buy us a house? Wait. You bought us a house? He says, no, I rented us a house. Okay. $600 goes only so far. He opens the door. She goes in. She's like, oh, Billy. She's looking around. She's so satisfied. He said, I almost went for someplace bigger, but I didn't want. She says, it's perfect. He says, yeah, what's perfect about it? She says that it's ours. And she looks down onto the living room. They're standing on a balcony looking down onto a living room. It's a really cool feature of this house. Makes for I mean, just what a beautiful place to shoot. It seems like it would be a really interesting space, gives you a lot of options. We're definitely going to see the kind of options it gives you later on in the house party. There is some furniture in it already, so I'm guessing he rented a furnished place. But a lot of exposed wood beams. She goes over, she kisses him. You know, I think this all tracks for Camilla. I think of her as such, again, Billy making this unilateral decision. He picked a house, he rented a house, and he didn't run any of this by Camilla. I would think Camilla would have opinions on this. Even from just an aesthetic point of view, I would think she would have opinions on this. But he made this choice himself, and surprised her with it. But I guess that's not so much different than a lot of the things he's already done over the course of their relationship. In some ways, I think of Camilla as this very, very strong character who has, you know, she can stand on her own 2 feet, but she does so supporting everybody else and not independently necessarily. But you know, there's this thing about her where she's completely willing to have a man who will make all of the choices about renting a house for her. This with people that I know, I feel like that there are a friend of mine who is of Mexican heritage and also pretty religious, also is like very strong. And there is also a sense of like a biblical like a man will provide sort of feeling about it, and I always thought it was a very interesting combination of things in her, and I guess I'm sort of seeing it in Camilla as well. I don't know if it surprises anybody else to see this sort of, maybe it's not even duality, maybe it's just this complexity. But they've rented a house now. We're going to see that what does the rest of the band get up to when when mom and dad are away? Well, they're hanging out on the balcony of their back house and or their back, I don't know, it's like a small house in the back of the bigger house that they had. And Graham is looking between Warren and Karen. They're high. They're trying to decide if they feel high yet, but that was the task. That was the mission. So they're on this roof, this balcony, like overlooking the stars and the city. Graham says, "How soon does it kick in?" And he's looking between Warren and Cam and Karen because surely they would know. Karen says, "Depends on the person." We see that it's definitely kicked in for Eddie. He is lost in thoughts. He's sort of hunched in his seat. I love all of the choices here for Eddie. Eddie doesn't have dialogue, but he Josh Whitehouse, just watch him. You have no reason to really watch him because he's not speaking, but watch him because it's magic. So if he starts out, he's sort of hunched over and lost in thought. He's definitely feeling it. Satellite of Love is still playing. Warren stands. He's like, come on, now I feel like on a molecular level, the me and the canyon, we're no, we're the same, man. He is sinking down into his chair in a really awkward and uncomfortable looking way. Karen's like, well, Warren's feeling it. Graham says, yeah, I got nothing. I mean, and then he pauses to think, am I feeling it? Meanwhile, Eddie is fascinated by his fingers. Thank you for your contribution, Josh Whitehouse. Um, Graham's like, oh, wait. And then we're going to hear interview Graham's voice as we're watching them all. He's like, how should I put this? With Billy and Camilla out of the house, I think we all just felt a little bit freer. We're going to see Karen. She puts her arms behind her, she's like behind her head. She's wearing a crop top. Her whole midriff is exposed. She's sitting right next to Graham. I mean, poor Graham, who has been friend zoned so hard before this moment, is just like, I don't know what signals he thinks he's getting. He's got confusion. All right. There's confusion and he's high. And this girl he has this huge crush on is just like right there. And on top of it all, he says, I can't feel my heart. And he of love, satellite of love. She puts one hand, she takes it away from her head and she very awkwardly places it over his heart, over his chest. She's like, it's beating. He says, are you sure? She says, yep, I'm sure. And she's smiling because she's feeling a beating heart. And I'm sure that feels really good when you're high. And Graham's like, don't move your hand. And for all of the reasons, don't move your hand. She says, okay, I won't. She's smiling. Interviewer laughs. He says, I really miss drugs. Okay, interview Billy is like, I wanted to get back into the studio right away to cut a new album, to turn the page, but that song wouldn't quit. An interview Graham says, we got asked to join the bill at the Diamond Head Festival in Hawaii. It was our first show since, and we get a really long pause. It was our first show since Billy had to be basically dragged off by Teddy to rehab. First, making a pit stop at not actually meeting his daughter just born in the hospital. So it's on people's minds. It's definitely on Billy's mind. It's on the whole band's mind. How's this going to go? Nobody really knows. They've recorded a song. They're playing some music, but it's a very different beast being on the road. And I guess they're about to see how this sobriety thing is going for Billy. And I imagine there's a fair amount of fear for Billy tied up in this. Like, the success of the song is problematic for him, both because he hates this song for all the reasons I've talked about, and probably many that you are thinking that I didn't even mention. But also, the better the song does, the more people are going to want Billy to go on tour, the more people are going to want Billy to be getting on stages and singing it to a crowd. And that's risky. That's not the safe space. That's not him his montage of him running, drinking water, and doing household chores, that's like putting him right back into the danger situation that he didn't handle well the first time around. So scary. Um, but we are going to see this Diamond Head Festival. The first thing we're going to see actually is a close up on the pamphlet for the Diamond Head Festival for 1975, featuring, let's see, America Bachman, Turner Overdrive, Steve Miller Band, Batdorf and Rodney, Cheech and Chong, Steve Ferguson and the Gypsy Hollow Boys, Herbie Hancock, the Grateful Dead, Melissa Manchester, Sean Phillips, Seals and Crofts, Stampedes, Tower of Power. Those are the ones in bigger letters. Under that, in smaller letters, we've got Trip Hammer, Leo Kotka. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Phantoms, Divine Comedy, Night Sun, Uriah Heep, Atlanta Rhythm Section, Nick Lowe Camel, I think is what I read there, and the Six, the very last name on the bill, but on the bill nonetheless. And so those are the names that I saw. I wanted to pause there on the screen to make sure I had gotten them all. I assume all of those are real. And I don't know if all of those were really on a lineup for the Diamond Head Festival and they just tacked the six on. I'll let you music experts out there let me know. But these were the songs playing at the Diamond Head Festival. Warren says, "Hey, Steve Miller Band, these guys are all here. We're going to see a wider shot. They're all being driven on a bus to get to the venue." Graham says, "Where are we?" On the brochure. Warren's like, "Right there, brother." He laughs. He points to the very last name. They all crowd in. They pile in to check it out. And they're all excited. They're whooping. And then Warren looks out the window. He's like, "Hey, take a look, check it out." And then they all crowd over to the window. We get this cool shot from them outside the bus window. And we're seeing them all pressed up against the window. And we're going to see an Oahu title card. Let's see. So, okay, we're going to hear a song here that is an interesting choice. And I guess this is what you have to get. So, obviously, in terms of uh, music selection and needle drops for this show, of course, they're getting stuff that's of the time period. You're getting 60s, 70s. The music is very well curated for this show. This particular song that's being played on stage right now is from an artist named Joshua Spears. The song is called Take a Chance on Us. And I found a post from him on TikTok saying, "My song was used." And he's actually, I think, the one even performing it, but you only see the back of him. So it is an unusual choice to have a modern today artist or even just a song featured in the show, but this person had to be on stage singing it. So, I mean, I guess there was wiggle room there in how they executed this, but they ast somebody from now who has written a song, or the bit of the song that we hear feels like it works with the time period, but it is an interesting choice. We're watching as the bus pulls up into we're going to call it a parking lot. This is a festival at like the rim of a volcano. I don't understand how they technically pull off this festival. So what we see in the shot is like a bunch of cars kind of dotted and sprawled around. I think they probably didn't have a ton to fill this space visually. And they did a good job of spreading things out as much as possible. These cars aren't parked on a grid. They're all over the place in all directions. They've got teepees taking up space. They've got a big archway that you can walk through. The van pulls up. It's just like dirt and a volcano. You can't really see a volcano. You can see dirt and you can see a stage. How did they get power? How did they get enough power to run what's happening on stage? I'm stunned. I I don't know how you pull an event like this off. It's amazing. I assume this is a real vent, so they do it. it feels like a place where no event should ever be made. It's what a feat. What a feat. What an accomplishment for humans to be able to run a concert out of this space. Cool. Anyway, so some of the lyrics we're hearing here, she was wearing her lipstick heavy, and he was driving a Chevy as the summer sun was sinking in. It's a little bit of the song. We're going to hear interview Eddie. He says we were on at 1 in the afternoon, but hey, at least we were invited. Well, that's the glass half full there, Eddie. We're going to see the guy, the singer of the song, on stage to a sprawling the crowd. They maximized the space of the crowd. It's like we want any camera angle that we can get of the crowd to be full of the crowd. But if that means people need to stand kind of far apart, that's okay. So there's kind of a sprawl there. The first shot we see of the crowd is actually an interesting shot where we're backstage looking on an angle, so we can only see like half of the crowd that would be in front of the stage. And I think and it looks a little bit more packed because they did it that way. And then later on, we're going to see an aerial shot where you can see like a more sprawling view. Okay. So the six are, the song is continuing. The six are there. They're doing a shot out in the open, except for Billy. Billy is just watching them take a shot. He's smoking, observing it. He keeps looking at the bottles of booze. Specifically, there's one bottle of booze. So ooh, this isn't easy for him. I don't see him looking at this feeling confident that he doesn't need it. I see him resisting. There's like an active resisting happening here. Teddy comes up behind Billy. He says, "Hey." Billy very quietly says, "Hey." Teddy's like, "You cool?" Because Teddy is the one person here in this orbit who would know to ask that question and who already knows the answer. Billy says, "Yeah, I'm cool." He's not really, though. He admits it's been a while, we didn't get the chance to sound check. I feel like if we had more time. Teddy says, "Hey, you got this." He gives him a little pep talk. He's going to be the dad figure here, the supportive figure here. Also, the guy who's got something riding on this, and he walks off. Billy looks at the band. He says, "Okay, huddle up, everybody." He says this as Daisy's walking up. He, I think, has seen Daisy. He doesn't invite Daisy into the huddle. The six is huddling. Nobody else invites Daisy into the huddle, but most of them haven't seen her because they were getting into a huddle. And Graham's like, sunburn. Billy says, "All right, who are we playing for?" Warren says, "Roberto Clemente, baby." That's as good a person as any, Warren. Graham says, "This one's for Mom." So far, this one is for Mom and Roberto Clemente. Eddie says, "Free beer." That's another good reason to play. Daisy's still not included in this. Interview Karen. We don't hear what she's playing for, but of course it wasn't just us that they wanted on the bill. She's reflecting on the fact that Daisy's there, but nobody's acknowledging this in real time. In the huddle, Billy's like, "Pittsburgh on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3, Pittsburgh." I don't know why Karen's still cheering for Pittsburgh. I mean, how have they never changed this? I mean, just goes to show you, Billy's ruling with an iron fist. Okay, so we're gonna get cheering and applause from the crowd, because the performer's still performing. She passes the band in their huddle. She goes to like sort of the foot of the stage or the stairs where you would walk up to go to the stage, and she's watching what's happening on stage. Billy finally joins her. He's awkward. Daisy's soaking in what's happening on stage. The announcer says, "Let's hear it for Jody Stevenson." There's cheering and applause. Billy's like, "Okay, how are you feeling? You nervous?" Daisy looks pleasant. She says, "No." He says, "You played for this kind of crowd before?" Daisy looks pleasant. She says, "No." Billy says, "All right, well, it's a lot of energy. Just don't worry about it. You just go out there, you sing." Daisy says, "Is this a pep talk for me or for you?" When she says, "Is this a pep talk for me?" he blinks. Like, not the reaction he expected to a pep talk. This is the nicest he thinks he's been to her and the most supportive he thinks he's been to her. She says, because I'm fine. She smiles at him, looking pleasant. And he says, okay, downshift. He says, we're playing it fourth. I'll introduce you when you come out. Okay. She says, okay, sounds good. She looks back out to the stage, not at the band. She's greeted zero other people from the band so far. And Billy walks away. The crowd is cheering for Jody Stevenson. And the announcer is going to say, all right, we all know and love this next band from their hit single, Look at Us Now. The band is sort of getting keyed up. They're anxiously awaiting being called to the stage. Everybody's looking in Daisy's direction. They've all seen her. She is there. Um, but they're all looking in the direction of the stage. And so Daisy isn't looking back at any of them. It's just weird. This doesn't feel healthy. Like say hi. Somebody say hi to somebody. I guess at least Billy came over, but still, that's like a D on an A to F scale of grades here. So we're going to get, I think this is Cheech who's on stage, or at least we're seeing him from behind. We've got the look of somebody in a big wig trying to be Cheech from Cheech and Chong. He says, let's give it up for the six. The crowd cheers. The band files past Daisy to get on stage. And two of them, Warren and Karen, actually touch her arm. Like, oh, you're here. So good to see you. So the two of them touch her arm. That tracks as the two people who would. As soon as they're on stage, and none of them can see nobody can see Daisy anymore. Daisy doubles over. She's like breathing really deeply. She's trying to catch her breath. She is so anxious. They start playing Flip the Switch, and we're getting this beautiful color palette, very different color palette than you'll see at pretty much any other show that they're going to get because they're outside. They're in this really sort of brown, red, orange environment. And just in terms of the location that they're at, and they're outside with the sunlight hitting them. So all of that, I think, really factored into the color choices in this scene. We're getting a lot of like browns and blacks. There's a dark, I think Billy's got like is that a blue shirt on that I think I noticed? And then there's like orange covers over the lights, and and when they start playing, the six really does seem like they're in a groove. These people know how to play together. And even though this is actually a very tense situation for them because of the fact that this is their first show together since Billy had to go off to rehab, and they've got this other person playing with them. And yet, I think they've played so much together that they look very comfortable. They're just hitting a groove. You can see it. They look calm and relaxed on stage with each other. We're going to see most of the shots are being, from the crowd back up at them. We're getting all these really fun like the camera's kind of moving through them so we can see a bit of that. Meanwhile, backstage, Daisy, who had seemed so pleasant and so in control of things when she was talking to Billy, she is anxious. She takes a pill. She's washing it down with some alcohol. We're hearing the lyrics, too late to pull the trigger. It's too late to turn on. Too late to flip the switch. Too late to pull the trigger. She can't go anywhere. Got to get on stage. She's feeling really impatient. I think she also, as they're singing, she's gesturing. Again, nobody can see her, but she's gesturing like, get on with it. She just is so antsy. She needs to get on stage. And there's nobody to support her now that she's standing alone in the wings. So I think it's actually really important to notice this moment from Daisy, because both Daisy and Billy do and say some things in this episode that I'm like, these two are so difficult. But I also, there are moments for both of them where they really bring me into their world and make me feel compassion for them too. And I think one of the compassionate moments for me for Daisy is seeing how anxious she actually is. She could not show Billy how nervous she was, or she felt she couldn't. She needed to keep it under control. She needed to be holding it together. She needed to be, I'm a professional. I've done this before. It's fine. Um, Even though she was honest that she hadn't played in front of a crowd like this before, she played it off like this is easy. No worries. I'm okay. She didn't want Billy to be talking down to her. Um, and, but she could really use somebody in her corner right now, looking at her alone back here. And she's so uncomfortable being alone with nobody in her corner that she just gets up on stage. After the very first song ends, flips a switch, she walks out on stage, her arms wide open, ready to embrace the crowd. She's got, she's wearing all like burnt orange and red colors. And they always give her when she's on stage things with these beautiful sleeves, things that, has sleeves a mile wide that you can see through and, not reflect the light, but, uh, you know, that have a certain amount of translucency and play with the light really well. Sheer sleeves, if you will. And so she's got that going on here for her outfit. She's got these arms wide open, the crowd's cheering. They know what this means. This is the song that the one they all know. Billy didn't want her out yet. He made that very clear from the very beginning. She's supposed to come out fourth and he was going to introduce her, but here she is for song number 2. He leans in to say, Daisy, I said fourth, but unfortunately she's already on stage. There's no unringing this bell. This has happened in front of everybody. And Graham looks kind of warily at Billy because it's like, ooh, what's going to happen to Billy? Daisy, she stands at this free mic with a big smile. She says a big aloha to the crowd. She looks back at Billy because she's not getting off this stage. Sorry, Billy. Interview Billy says she obviously did it on purpose. And he laughs a little bit. Interview Daisy says, I'm not exactly a patient person. And the thing is, like, I'm guessing there was never a moment where Daisy was willing to have the conversation with Billy where she's like, I was actually terrified and out of my mind when I got up on stage second. Like that was a coping mechanism for me. And maybe had she said that to him, that would have been a different conversation for them and would have gotten them on the same page a little faster. But they can never say things like this to each other because they have to like not show vulnerability. So she can't even say it to the interviewer. I'm not exactly a patient person. She was terrified. Anyway, the camera is going to pull back over the front of the crowd to see the whole band on stage. Now that Daisy's on stage, we're going to get a new camera angle. So we're going to sweep over the crowd and look at the whole band. And the crowd's cheering. They're going to start playing Look at Us Now. Billy starts. He gives the whole, like, I don't know who I am, baby, baby, baby. We're going to see now from behind Daisy and Billy, like sort of over one shoulder, looking into the crowd. Do you know? And I don't know, it sort of makes them feel like iconic figures from this angle. Do you know who you are? Daisy looks like she's instantly started to calm down when she was on stage. And she feels like she's in her element in the way that the Six did when they were playing together for the first song. But what's interesting about how I'm reading this band and Daisy with them in this song is that Daisy looks very calm, but she is testing the Six in a way. And the Six is playing well, and they've probably dealt with a lot of stuff happening on stage before, and they're coping with this well. But I feel like there's a lot of unspoken communication happening in looks and in glances at like who's reacting to what here. So while there's like a lot of comfort and professionalism happening on stage, there's also a lot being communicated if you look at all of their faces. Um, Billy's saying, is it out of our hands? Tell me, tell me, tell me how we made it this far. Daisy joins him. Did we unravel a long time ago? We get Billy and Daisy looking at each other as they sing. And I think, with these songs, like with this song, we're getting the whole song, which is cool. I think it's nice to see them perform the whole thing on stage live. And even though we've looked at the words of this, I think What I find interesting in this sequence is the looks, the connections between people. So, did we unravel a long time ago? We're going to get Billy and Daisy look at each other here. And when they look at each other and they're singing, I feel like the problems go away for a second. Um, and so we're starting to experience that with them. Is there too much we don't want to know? Teddy is watching this. Don joins him. Pretty high stakes. This needs to work for Teddy, and it needs to work for Teddy in front of Don. I wish it was easy, but it isn't. So Daisy is starting to play with it. She goes, did you get to the, oh, we can make a good thing bad? She raises her arms and her beautiful sleeves are hanging down. And it's a real still picture moment with her. Karen is watching Daisy and smiling, oh, we can make a good thing bad. Daisy does it again. Karen's watching all of this, and you could just tell, if there were a photographer in the audience getting a photo for a front page or for a headline for not a headline, getting a photo for a news article about this, the photo would be Daisy with her arms up, and the crowd going wild, and maybe the rest of the band, maybe. Um, but Karen's watching all this and she sees that Daisy has a presence about her and that there's a good energy between Billy and Daisy when they're singing. Daisy is continuing, now where do we stand? Baby, baby, baby. No one knows who you are. She looks at Billy and they smile at each other. And it's starting to feel a little more genuine. If this was your plan, tell me why. You've been crying in the dark. Together, they're going to sing We Unraveled a Long Time Ago. She takes the mic off the stand, and now she's physically able to move and walk around the stage. So she's taking some ownership of this. She's really commanding the space more. I feel like we're seeing growth in Daisy in the one performance. And remember, we had a whole episode of the Dunn brothers and then the Six doing all of these shows where they could gel as a group and hone their performance. And Daisy kind of has to do it today. They had what? The Dunn brothers, did they say like 7 or 8 months to work out, like that Teddy put them through their paces? Daisy has today. She recorded a song and she's got to do it now. Teddy saw her perform once at the Troubadour by herself in a small room with Simone backing her up. This is no joke. Uh, and Teddy's, a lot's riding on this for Teddy, too. I can't imagine he put that kind of pressure on her, but this is a lot when I'm really sitting and thinking about it. So now she's taken the mic off the stand and she's walking around. We're going to get this. The music is matching this spirit in her as well because the drums chime in. The guitar gets stronger here. We lost and we couldn't let it go. I wish it was easy, but it's so baby. We're going to get to, oh, and now Daisy's shaking her head and she's really getting into it. The driving beat kicks in, the crowd starts jumping, and I think the crowd starts jumping because they see Daisy jumping on the stage, and now everybody is jumping. Daisy's clapping along to the music, and the crowd's clapping with her. When she does something, it's like a call and response between Daisy and the audience. How did we get here? How did we get out? We used to be something to see. Well, baby, look at us now. Karen, I like these moments of reactions. Karen is observing the crowd as they're observing Daisy. She's taking it in. She's like, she watches this in a way where she could give the band notes afterwards if Billy let her. Warren is taking it in a different way. He's just enjoying it. He's living it up. He's smiling at all of it. Oh, baby, look at us now. Baby, look at us now. How did we get here? How do we get out? This thing we've been doing ain't working out. We get the sexy guitar happening here, and Daisy and Billy smile at each other. Makes you feel completely different about their relationship now. You hear a sexy guitar behind it. Oh, how did we get out here? So how did we get here? Daisy claps. This is my least favorite moment in this edit because it feels like Daisy's clapping is out of sync with the song. Maybe it's not actually, it just looks like it is. I don't know. Billy, there had been a comment made to me that Sam Claflin is great with the face acting and he does a really good job with the singing. And then when he has to sing, they give him really uncomplicated guitar stuff. And I was looking for that this time. I was like, yeah, I looked at it this particular moment and I thought his fingers aren't even moving. He's just strumming. It's uncomplicated, but I am sold on every moment of Sam Claflin as Billy, and he has such a strong presence. And I do think it is that understanding of what the connection needs to be between Daisy and Billy. How do we get out? We used to be something to see. Oh, baby, look at us now. Baby, look at us now. We can make a good thing bad. We can make a good thing bad. They smile at each other at the end. Daisy and Billy do. Daisy smiles out to the crowd. The crowd is cheering. They're going nuts. Billy's like, Daisy Jones, everybody. She stands with her arms outstretched. The crowd cheers. And interview Billy says, and that was the part when she was supposed to get off stage. Daisy, meanwhile, we cut back to Daisy. She's throwing a lei into the audience. She's loving it. She's having the time of her life in this moment. You know, she was feeling a lot of anxiety getting on the stage, but when she got on stage, each passing 30 seconds, she found a new way to get into her groove. And she clearly has um I'm sure if you showed Daisy footage of this Diamond Head Festival later into her career, she'd be like, I can't believe it. But she clearly has an aptitude for being on stage, for getting a crowd to enjoy what she's doing, for getting them to follow her and to sort of get their loyalty. And as much as she went completely rogue here, um, the result was good in terms of like everybody but Billy. So I don't know that she's been negatively reinforced from this at this particular moment. So at this point, people they're shouting Daisy, Daisy. They're chanting her name. The whole band is clapping for her, like time to get off stage. That was great what you did there. And Daisy goes back to the mic. She says, "You guys want me to stay for one more?" And Eddie kind of like you can see his head sort of turn, and he looks at her. He's like, "Uh-oh." And Billy mouths to her, "What?" And he says it through a smile. You wouldn't, I don't even know if you would catch that if you were, unless you were really looking at his face, if you were in this crowd. But he's like, "What are you doing?" So interview Daisy says, "They wouldn't let me leave." I think this is a perfect example of the unreliable narrator bit, because what we're seeing of Daisy that the camera is showing us at this festival and the things that interview Daisy has chosen to say to us don't really line up. Uh, she seemed anxious to me before she got on stage, and I think she's egging the crowd on. It's not that they wouldn't let her leave. She could have left. She remembers a little differently from what the camera is showing us. Okay, so we're going to then get an aerial shot of this festival. It's very sprawling. I don't know to what degree this was. Is there any CGI here? I don't know how many people they actually had here. I mean, remember COVID, right? So, like, there actually probably needed to be social distancing requirements if there were people, in fact, there. I think my understanding is that they had more people for this particular performance than they did at the bigger stadium shows. Um, but still there's a reason they have to be spread out, and so like a real life reason. So all of that goes into this, and at the end of the day, concert at a volcano, folks. The Diamond Head Festival. We're going to see the band start to play Look Me in the Eye. Daisy's riling up the crowd. She starts interacting with Graham. She grabs a tambourine. She's ready to complicate this a little bit for herself and go the next step, go the next level up. We're going to get this, upbeat intro. We hear the full song. Um, and again, we're really pushing it here with the Daisy Billy connection. Daisy, not only is she willing to walk away from her standing mic, she is willing to walk over to Billy's mic and share his mic with him on a song she wasn't even supposed to be here for. So we're hearing this. We've talked about the lyrics of this song before. Hey, wheel, everybody. All right, say it with me, wheel. I'm not going to repeat that over and over again this time, but at the point when they get to, and I know you don't mean it, I don't, you don't mean it, I know you don't mean it. Billy, Daisy joins Billy at his mic. Billy keeps it professional. I can never totally tell what Billy's thinking about the fact that she's joining him at the mic for this song, which I think is Billy keeping it professional and keeping it cool. And I think he does a, I actually think he does a very good job. I know we can say all day long, I'm going to be in, for this moment, I am going to be a Billy apologist and say Daisy's going really rogue and she's really overstepping. And like, the yes, Billy needs entirely too much control over his band, and that's an issue, right? But also, this is a lot. This is maybe too much. And now she's sharing his mic, and he hasn't ripped her face off, which I think is a great sign. Um, she is literally leaning her head against his, and they're getting through. I know you don't mean it because you can't turn around, look me in the eye, turn around and say it to my face. By the time they get to the end of this song, they sing a lot of this with her like sort of leaning her head up against his. When they get to the end of this song and they get to say it to my face at the end, they're both belting it. They clearly have, with this proximity, with this environment, with this energy from the crowd, they've raised each other's game. Like by the end, the last line of this song, their game is raised. They're belting it and their heads are touching. I don't even know how you do a thing like that. Like, how do you, I don't know. It's hard enough to control. I don't know. Apparently, they have so much control over their bodies that they can be physically touching heads with each other and they can still belt at the top of their lungs effectively. So the band gets off stage. They're going down the stairs. Billy's first down the stairs. The rest of them are buzzing. Graham's like, all right, was it just me? Or Eddie chuckles. He's like, it's not just you, dude. Graham's like, come on. They're just stoked about how this went. Karen smiles. She looks back at Daisy. She's like, you were incredible out there. Every time you moved, they lost it. Warren says, a girl flashed me. She lifted her shirt, and there they were. This feels like the thing Warren would focus on. Billy, he's like, he pulls Daisy aside. He says, can I talk to you? Because before we get more comments from the peanut gallery about how great this was, Billy needs to put a stop to this. He needs to nip this in the bud right now. He says, can I talk to you? He pulls Daisy to the side. He says, I said we were playing it fourth. Did you not hear me? Or did you just choose to ignore me? Daisy says, oh no, I just thought you'd already played three because they all sound the same. Daisy nods. And she smiles at Billy, pleasant as can be, and walks away. And he just blinks. Like, what just happened? So I'm going to mention the next thing that happens, and then we'll recap. The interviewer from Honolulu, well, that's what the microphone says anyway. He says, your first single, it hits number one. I mean, how do you top that? We're now going to see the band because he's interviewing them. We see Billy standing a bit in front. We see Daisy off to his side, but behind him. And then we see the rest of the band behind them. Billy says, well, this wasn't our first single, but yeah, I mean, we have an album out, 789. Great name. Love it. The interviewer's like, that's the one with the song? Daisy says, I think we're just happy that everybody's digging the song and we're happy to be here. The band's getting awkward. I mean, I think everybody here knows that Billy's the one who answers the questions. Billy cuts her off. He's like, yeah, true. It was great watching them sing our words. That was pretty incredible. He gives Daisy a glance like, you know your place. He does it in one glance. The interviewer says, so what do you two have planned for an encore? What a weird way to put that, interviewer. I mean, clearly he's reading the correct energy here. But what do you two have? There are all these people standing in front of you. What do you two have planned? Billy says, well, Daisy has her own stuff going on. And, we're not really looking for, the band's kind of shifting their feet. They're looking around like, how can we be anywhere but on this camera? He says, look, as much as we loved having her sing our song, her brow furrows a little bit. Ooh. much as we loved having her sing our song, that was more of a one-time thing. So the interviewer's like, I'm sorry to hear that. Daisy looks at the interviewer. She breathes in and she nods. She says, thank you. The interviewer ends the interview. Thanks for your time. After the interview, they are all walking back to the bus, and Daisy catches up with Billy. She says, you're a real effing asshole, aren't you? Billy says, what? She says, singing your song? He says, I gave you credit. She says, you didn't give me shit. Those were my words you were singing. He says, you know what? And he thinks about it and he decides against it. He says, have a nice life. He gets onto the bus. Daisy's standing there stewing, just there's like steam. You can almost see the steam coming out of her ears. She just says, mother effer, and she walks off. Okay. Uh, Unpacking this, I don't know. I'm curious for those watching this. Did you find one person more at fault here? Because I think both Daisy and Billy did some really shady things. There are moments when I think they both slighted each other and they both went rogue in different at different times and in different ways. And in the moments when they went rogue and it impacted the other one negatively, I felt compassion for the other person. And then somehow they turned it around. Like I think they both gave and took the assholery, if you will. I don't know. I maybe probably made up that word. But anyway, I mean, Daisy getting on stage out of order. They didn't even have none of them had a sound check. There was a lot riding on this performance for everybody on many levels, including Teddy, including Billy, who was like trying to redeem himself on stage here and probably wants as many things in his control to do that as possible. I mean, it's a lot, right? Daisy was super nervous. She couldn't reveal that to anybody. She gets on stage. She does it out of order. She throws the whole band for a loop. They were able to cope with it. They were able to manage around it, but it was a situation that required workarounds, not the plan. Like it wasn't plan A. She just decided not to do plan A for no reason, according to them, or for them at least. So like Daisy went very rogue. She stayed on stage for the whole set after the first song. They hadn't practiced with her. You know, like it was weird. It was something that you had to figure out in the moment and was electric, worked out really well. But she's a person who will go rogue. And so do you want that? Do you want that on stage with you? I mean, I don't know that I would. Um, and then in response to that, Billy is trying to put her back in her place. He doesn't want to lose control, especially not to this degree, which looks like a huge degree to me. And so he's putting her back in her place. He's like, thanks so much. This is the last time. He puts it out there publicly because it's hard to walk that back for anybody afterwards. And unfortunately, in the process of that, he he hits a button for her, which is stealing her songs and her ideas. She's not Billy's muse, she's the somebody, and she's gonna let him know it. So the fact that it feels like he's taking credit for this song um is and maybe that is when he said our song, I probably misinterpreted that on the first time to mean like Daisy and I had written this together. Maybe he meant the six. Um, but it seems like she took it that way. And so, yeah, like this is a hot button thing to do. And he kind of knows that because, well, I don't know if he knows that actually. So, I mean, this is a lot. He wandered onto this and that was like the last straw for Daisy. So I don't know. I think I'm not even going to say it's miscommunication between them. I think that they actively have reasons to not share the vulnerable part of themselves with each other, and they're not doing that. And so it's creating more problems. I think if either of them could open up a little bit more and be honest with each other, they probably wouldn't be doing things that cause this much reaction. But these are the people they are, and this is what they're willing to do, and they both want a certain amount of control. So This is what happened at the Diamond Head Festival, okay? So things, emotions are running high. We get back on the bus. Karen's thinking she wants to process this a little bit. She wants to dial this down a little bit and give Billy something to think about. So she is sitting on the bus in one seat. She goes back to sit next to Billy. She says, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. He says, what? She says, Billy. Come on. He says, did you see what happened back there? She says, yeah, it was amazing. The crowd loved us. They loved her. Billy says, she came out at the wrong song. And then she wouldn't leave. All right. She wanted to be the center of attention the whole time. Karen looks off camera to somebody else, like, are you hearing this from this guy? She wants to be the center of attention. Yeah, surely this is an issue for him as well. He's the front man. He wanted that. And then there she is stealing his thunder. So, but he's also saying some things that are true as well. Karen says, I don't know, man. There's just something about the two of you together. Billy says, she said she wrote the whole damn song. So this is an issue for both of them. Um, Karen says, well, she did write the bit that everyone sings along to. Billy absorbs that. And he says, I'm not saying she's untalented. I'm just saying she's a powder keg. All right. I'm saying, Karen says, what? He says, I'm saying I don't think we'd survive her. Karen blinks a little bit. That's an interesting choice of words. Um, what an interesting conversation between those two. I think we get so much about the Billy Karen dynamic from this little scene that we get here, the short scene. It is absolutely packed with stuff to read between the lines because Billy never blows up at Karen here. He never even seems to raise his voice. Karen gets him thinking. And I will say, Camilla might have scored the goal at the end of the episode, but Karen gets the assist with this conversation she had with Billy because in real time, when emotions were hot, when Billy was fuming and furious and he walked away from Daisy and he was like, see you never, Karen said, that was actually stellar. Like, you might be too close to this situation to see how much of a gold mine that is. And he hearing this from Karen, he could not have heard this from Eddie. Warren wouldn't talk about this. He'd just be like, a girl flashed me. Like that's all Warren would say. Graham wouldn't go there. Graham would be loyal to Billy and he'd back him up blindly no matter what the consequences of that were. Karen saying, here's a note from musician to musician. What you two are doing is amazing and it's good for the band. And just getting that message in there early, I think, is just planting that seed. And she doesn't explore it. It's not like we see more of this conversation. He doesn't say, I don't think we'd survive her. And she like debates him on it. All she needed to do was plant that seed. We're going to see Interview Daisy say Billy would never admit that he needed anybody. So yeah, we had that in common. And it's true. This is the most true thing that I think Interview Daisy has said about the Diamond Head Festival because she needed people here and there was actually nobody standing with her. Partly her own doing. And also they didn't invite her in. She chuckles a little bit. She says, the point is I was pissed. And the thing about anger is it's an excellent motivator. So we're going to see her working out some lyrics to a new song. She's slowly shaping vocals here in this scene that are going to become Type of Guy, that song. She's vocalizing, but she's very frustrated. She's ripping out a page from her journal. She's playing guitar. She's working, but she's working through with some angst. She's smoking, she's drinking, she's pacing. She's like, wow, this is so bad. Like she's coming up with these ideas, but none of them are working. Like, you're the type of guy. She's trying to decide what she wants to say to Billy's face. She's lingering on, you're a dick. You're a dick. I love that part. There are some really good line reads and moments and like these little moments with these lines that are written in. And I love the you're a dick. You're a dick. This is what she wants to say to Billy, but she's trying to turn it into a song that makes sense. Um, Pause on that for a moment. Let's see what's happening in Simone's world. Because actually, what happens in Simone's world is huge, and we don't spend very much time on it in this episode. We're going to see Simone and Daisy in their living room watching TV. The Chanterelles are performing. Simone's filing her nails. Daisy's looking through her journal. Daisy's kind of bopping along to the beat. Simone recognizes the vocals. She looks up. She moves a little closer to the TV. She winces a bit. Then we're going to see this cool camera angle here where Simone's in frame, the profile, and then Daisy comes in behind her profile, and we kind of focus on her face again. And all that I can do is wait, and if I can't understand, maybe I can still relate. Daisy's like, "Is that?" Simone says, "That's my voice. These are the vocals that we've heard." Daisy's like, "I'm gonna have to kill him." Simone's like, "Daisy." Daisy says, "They can't just use your voice. It's bullshit." She's furious. She's fuming. She gets up. She throws down her journal. She walks where the lyrics go. They walk right out the door. Daisy walks right out the door. Simone goes to follow her. We hear the door open. Simone's like, "Daisy, no, 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 wait." Simone goes to catch Daisy before Daisy gets all the way to the car. Daisy says, "I'm going to kick his effing teeth in. I'm going to burn his effing studio down. That's what I'm going to do." Simone blocks her from the car. She says, "Daisy, stop. Give me the keys." There are probably a million thoughts running through Simone's head in this short sequence of lines right now. Um, hey, Daisy, stop. Give me the keys. She scoffs. "I love you. Give me the keys." The number of thoughts that go through Simone's head in that sequence, again, Navia B does an amazing job of playing a Simone who articulates 5% of the things she's thinking and has probably learned to do that in her life. And a lot of that's happening here. So she says, "Daisy, stop. Give me the keys." She's taking control in a way that she can take control in this situation. She scoffs a little bit here, but it's this really interesting expression from her that's almost like, I can't even get into all the things I need to explain to you about why you can't go and do something about this. Like, there's both there's so many reasons why you can't go and confront this man. And I don't even have the energy to explain to you why it's not okay for you to do that for me. Um, but then she swallows all of that. And instead she says, "I love you. Give me the keys." Daisy gives her the keys. They walk back inside, and we're going to get part two of this, or maybe part three of this, where they go back inside and Simone decompresses with Daisy. I think let me talk about that first and then go back to this outside part. Inside the apartment, Simone says very shamefully, "I could have just sat on his lap for maybe 2 more minutes. Maybe that would have." Daisy's just shaking her head and just like rubbing her face. She's like, "No, Simone, F that." Simone says, "I know. It's just, maybe I just need to get out of here." Daisy says, "Get out of here? Like what? To where?" Simone says, "I'm going to New York. I told you I told you what that woman said at the party." Daisy chuckles. She's like, "That woman?" Simone sort of chuckles, but she can't look at Daisy. Simone's like, "It's just the way she talks about it. It's Daisy says, "What?" Simone says, "It's different." She sighs a bit. Daisy smiles a little to encourage her to keep talking. Simone says, "Maybe that's what I need, a new scene, a fresh start, somewhere where nobody knows me." She pauses. She chuckles a little bit. She's like, "You think it's crazy." Daisy says, "I don't think it's crazy." She's gonna she's gonna she's gonna go to a place here, and she wants to start, I think. You could say that Daisy turns the conversation back to herself here because Daisy's a selfish character, but I actually think that sometimes it's more effective when somebody's clearly hesitant to talk about a thing to say, "Okay, well, my experience has been," and sometimes they will then share their experience. And so Daisy tactically here says, "I had this moment." She closes her eyes. She's remembering the moment. She says, "When I was up on stage with Billy Dunn and the rest of them, where I got this rush." And for 25 minutes, I was the happiest I've ever been. And Simone smiles because she wants that for her friend. Daisy considers how to proceed, and she says, she leans forward a little bit, just a little bit, and she says, and that's what I see in your face every time that woman calls you on the phone. When she says that woman, Simone bursts into tears. She's bashful. Simone hasn't officially come out to Daisy, but if Daisy's saying this woman calls you on the phone a lot, Daisy knows. Daisy knew from the moment they first met at the party. Simone sort of chuckles and she cries. It's sort of a half laugh, half crying. It's like she doesn't even have to come out to Daisy. It's on the, without using the words, it's already there, and Daisy's accepted it, and it's fine. And Daisy leans in even more because she really wants to keep pushing Simone to do what's best for her. Simone looks up at Daisy and makes eye contact. Daisy says, if we can feel like this all the time, both of us, I don't care how crazy it is, we should do it. And Simone's got tears streaming down her face, and she holds Daisy's hand. Interview, Simone says, so that's what I did. And she smiles. And we'll get one more sort of goodbye scene between them here. But I mean, first of all, this is really high. If Daisy were really being fully selfish here, she'd be saying, don't leave. This is the only friend she's got in town. Like this is her entire support system, it feels like, maybe, and Teddy, right? But that's not there, that's not a there's a status thing happening there, right? She can't talk to Teddy the way she talks to Simone. Daisy needs Simone, and Simone needs to go to New York, and Daisy's saying, you need to go to New York. That's not a selfish thing to do. This is not, to me, this is not the reaction of a selfish character. I don't know when people think about her as a selfish character if they mean this scene, but I see compassion here. The complexity around this conversation to me is really interesting. The fact that this happens in multiple phases, like they start inside, they go outside, they go back inside. When they go outside, it's because Daisy is red hot. She's about to confront. She wants to get in the car and she wants to drive over to this producer's place or the studio or wherever, and she wants to rip him a new one. But it sounds so easy to do that for somebody else. But when you are the person, it might make you unhireable ever again, right? Like for anybody who does that. And she is a Black woman, a queer woman, and that part isn't known, but it's clear that she's a Black woman. And I don't know how many artists that looked like her were making it big at the time. I don't know how much space there was at the top for the Simones of the world. So she doesn't feel like she can give the Lee Parlins of the world another reason to not give her opportunities or to blacklist her. So, it's complex. And I do think it would be complex for anybody because I've seen a lot of people suffer really unfortunate situations in the workplace. And a lot of people who are complicit in it, and nobody does anything about it because you don't want to lose a job or you don't want to, there are professional stakes at risk. And she's got this race element as well that Daisy does not understand. And so there's a lot of stuff here. And I think, Daisy, on the one hand, Daisy feeling so fired up and saying, I'm going to take a bat to this guy, like on the one hand, it's like, it's a nice friend thing to do to have a friend be that fired up for you that they want to be loyal to you. They want to show their loyalty and they want to hurt the person who's hurting you. And Simone doesn't even have the energy to explain all the levels of how much she needs Daisy to slow her roll. It's a lot going on here. But when Simone is able to say, Daisy, you cannot do that, and Daisy listens to that, and they go back inside for the next part of the conversation, this is where Simone gets to sort of grieve. I don't know if grieving is the right word. Grieve the experience that she just had or process the experience she just had. It's where she gets to say, this needs to be a catalyst for change for me. And, there's a big admission that's not exactly stated, but Daisy's accepting of it. I think I see some really good things happening in this relationship here, and there's also some things happening under the surface that aren't being spoken. But a lot of layers to this scene. It makes a good scene when you can deep dive and come up with this much. And I imagine you are thinking even more things. So, feel free to jump in with what I haven't talked about already. But we're going to go to the goodbye between them. Simone's going to go to New York. We're going to hear again, another really well placed lyrically song here, Aerosmith's Sweet Emotion. We're going to see the Greyhound bus station. We pull back. We see the bus. We see Daisy seeing Simone off. Simone says, "This is it." Daisy goes in to hug her. Daisy, I love, we get a profile of Daisy and Simone here. Riley Keel looks like the tallest person in the world with the outfit they put her in here. Those boots and the jeans. Wow. Simone has this long brown coat and one suitcase. She's packed her whole life into one suitcase. Um, so you hear these stories, Simone did it. Daisy says, "I don't know what I'm going to do without you." Simone says, "You'll never be without me." And if this is your first watch, don't you worry. It's not the last episode we're going to see of Simone. I think they kind of hint at that by the end when we see Simone get off of the bus. But if you liked this character, you're in luck. You're going to get more of her. There's a big hug between them. Sweet Emotion is playing. And we're going to get interview Daisy's voice as Simone gets onto the bus. She says, "She was my only real friend in the world." Daisy says, "Call me when you get there." And interview Daisy says, and just like that, she was gone. That's not easy. That's not easy to just. Daisy in no way tried to put up a fight for this. She was just like, "This woman needs to go. She needs to go. Like, I cannot be the thing that stops her." So she just saw her friend off at the bus station. And where's Daisy gonna stay now? Because that was Simone's apartment she was living in. The ramifications of this are massive. But the good news is that I guess she's got royalty. Does Daisy have royalty checks coming in from Look at Us Now? Um, was it the six featuring Daisy Jones? Like, is she getting paid for this? How does this work? I think she must be, right? Because she's staying at the Chateau Marmont Hotel. She's got to live somewhere. We're still hearing Sweet Emotion. You talk about the things that nobody cares, wearing out things that nobody wears. A bellhop is bringing Daisy's stuff to her room. She looks around the hotel, of the stairs coming down, and then she's looking out onto the pool area. People are sitting poolside. She interview Daisy says, "I thought being around people would make me feel less lonely. So I moved into a hotel. I was wrong." Okay, so that's the state of mind for Daisy right now. I mean, she didn't have a lot of people in her orbit that she was friend that were close to her anyway, and one just left. So this is really fresh for her. We're going to see her in her room. She takes out a guitar. She's sitting in an armchair. She's in front of, it's a beautifully blocked shot. She's in this armchair right in front of a door that she's open with this curtain, this white curtain sort of billowing in. She's further developed the song Type of Guy. You're the type of guy who has a Virgin Mary leaning on his bed. We see her smoking, looking out onto the city, sitting all alone in the dark. She says, "And you're the type of guy who has double meanings in his head. Affectations put you in your place. The painting leaves you empty. We see a close up on the Billboard Hot 100. Look at Us Now is at number 1. One of These Nights by the Eagles is number 2. Get Down Tonight by Casey and the Sunshine Band is 3. Okay, so interview Daisy says, "I had the number 1 song in the country and not a single person that I wanted to celebrate with." My goodness, the loneliness. I was saying in the first episode, this Daisy looks like an incredibly lonely person. And now here we are, 3 episodes after that. And again, like, for as many things as have happened for her and for the success she's experienced, She's just as alone as she was when we first started the show. She's got Teddy in her corner. There's that, but who else? Her song is continuing. Let's see. And I'm that same type of guy. I'm that same type of guy. So it's interesting to me because we haven't heard the whole song here, but you know that she was start when she started working this song out, she was so angry at Billy. So this song is going to be about Billy. But here we are. The lyrics that we hear the most often here are, and I'm that same type of guy. You and me are the same. Whatever she's getting fired up at Billy about, she's probably feeling the same way about herself. Mirrors. We've held a lot of mirrors up to Billy in this episode and the last episode. Maybe people haven't been as blatant about doing that with Daisy, but maybe she doesn't exactly need them to because she already recognizes that Billy's her mirror and she is like already seeing it. So maybe she doesn't need somebody to articulate it for her. We're going to see Daisy walking alone on a residential street. Well, first we see her walking alone on a sidewalk with a bunch of people around. Then we see her walking alone on a residential street. She knocks on the door of a house. There's no answer. She breaks a window and opens the door. This is the thing Daisy does, guys. Apparently there wasn't a hide a key here. Daisy is asleep on a bed in this house, and a light flashes on her face, and a policeman says, "Hey," she's groaning. There's a light in her face. She's trying to shield her eyes from it, and her arm is just, there's all this dried blood all over her arm. She says, I live here. My parents live here. Seems like they don't anymore. But there is still a bed here. So is this somebody else living here now? The interviewer, the not the interviewer from the Hawaii station, but the interviewer from the band's interviews is saying, you were arrested, weren't you? Breaking into your childhood home. Interview Daisy says, I mean, people write all kinds of things about me that aren't true. The number of times she lies to us, to the interviewer in this episode, I feel like in the first few episodes, it felt to me like she was more honest. And the fact that she's turned the lying up to 11, like and the camera footage, the footage of the time is giving us the receipts of how much she's not telling the truth. And something about this episode for her, she's feeling really, really vulnerable. And there are a lot of things that really pushed her out of her comfort zone and then out into loneliness. And it's making her hide things about herself, even from us. Okay. Daisy is sitting in a jail cell and she seems to be thinking about a song. She's working on a song. Is it still Type of Guy? Is it something else? Karen walks up. I guess Daisy used her one phone call to call Karen somehow. I don't know how she knew she must have called the Six's house and Karen answered, but she had their number. Amazing. Daisy is going to walk up to the bars of the cell. She says they made a mistake. I'm not supposed to be here. Basically, it's awkward. Karen's like, you don't have to explain anything to me. Daisy nods. Daisy's being let out. Karen's like, I'm just curious. Why did you call me? I mean, you're from here, aren't you? You must have people. Daisy looks at Karen blankly. She says, I'm from Mars, Karen. I don't have people. Karen watches her walk away. And interview Karen says, I don't even know how she got my number. I really wanted this to be my line of the episode, but I think there are other lines that I should use instead. But I just so enjoy this line read from Karen. How did she even get my number? Daisy walks out of the precinct and Karen follows. I mean, my goodness, if you're Karen in this situation, it's too bad that we don't get more of the Karen confessional moments because, she really, like, she's able to have this conversation with Billy on the bus where she's like, just what if you considered maybe the possibility of just the idea that perhaps Daisy's good for the band? And Billy doesn't bite her head off, and she's able to sort of like mist him into thinking about it. And then, she has this moment of insight with Daisy where she's seeing all the things she needs to see about this situation. Daisy is incredible on stage. She's incredible about getting an entire volcano full of people to love her. And not another human is available to her who loves her when she's in trouble. That's got to read really weird to Karen. And I wonder what psychological profile she is assessing on Daisy right now. But Karen's like, this seems really desperate that she's calling me. Hmm. And the fact that Daisy is just like, I'm from Mars, Karen, you know, it's like I can't get into it, but you're exactly right, sort of thing. Um, I think they can just sort of have that was the conversation they needed to have here. We're gonna go to Daisy talking with Teddy, poolside. I love this shot when we open this scene. I love this shot. It was so pleasing to the eye. It was almost perfectly symmetrical, both like on like a horizontal axis and the axis and a vertical one. The between the reflection of these two people in the pool, and then the fact that the uh, umbrella almost perfectly splits this scene down the middle, and Daisy and Teddy are on either side of it. Gorgeous. I don't know how long it took to set up this shot, but you nailed it. Okay. So good. So Teddy and Daisy are talking. Daisy's like, I mean, I have the whole album figured out in my head already. Teddy says, great, how are you hearing it? She's like, I want big electric guitars, tons of harmonies. We're gonna go to a medium shot on them. And you can see that Daisy's wrist is wrapped from when she broke the glass in the door and tried to reach in to open it. She's like, driving rhythms that make you want to dance. I'm tired, Teddy, of this singer-songwriter thing. He's like, sounds like some friends of mine. This isn't it. This is what Teddy is thinking. Daisy's like, I'm not talking about the six. He's like, good. She wasn't expecting him to say that. She says, good. She's like, take it back. Like, no, it's great. She's like, good. Teddy says, yeah, because I don't think they'd be right for you anyway. She says, well, I certainly don't either, except I do. She doesn't know what to do with this response from Teddy. She's like very haltingly, very searchingly looking for her words here. The camera pulls back to the wider angle. And then it goes medium again. It's like, wait, well, why not? And he blinks a little bit. He's like, because he knows she really meant that. She's like, I mean, why wouldn't you think the six would be right for me? We just wrote the biggest song of the summer together. Teddy says, Daisy, you're not just a musician or a songwriter or just a great performer. What you are is a front man. They already have one of those. Hear what I'm saying? Daisy says, yeah, I hear what you're saying. He doesn't like to share it. I get it. Teddy looks at her like, yeah, right. Sure, you get it. This isn't the end of this conversation. Daisy looks at the pool and she's just got this crease right here. This that didn't go the way she wanted. She was floating the idea at Teddy. He's like, nope, that's not a thing that's going to work. He's seen the tension. It's not a thing. He knows Billy. He knows him like on so many levels. Like I don't know. This is a lot, right? And I don't know if Daisy is prepared to accept Teddy's thoughts on that. We're going to see Camilla and Billy. We're going to get sort of this. Karen planted a seed. Camilla's going to water it a bit here without knowing that Karen had already planted it. Camilla and Billy are sitting on the couch together watching the interview from the Diamond Head Festival at home. And interestingly, the camera angle on this on TV makes it look like it almost makes it look like Billy and Daisy are standing side by side and Eddie standing between them behind them. You can't even really see the rest of the band. And even though in actuality, Daisy was behind Billy a bit. The interviewer is saying, "So what do you two have planned for an encore?" And we get the part where Billy is saying, "Well, Daisy, she has her own stuff going on. We're not really looking for we're not looking for another one. Look, as much as we loved having her sing on our song, that was more of a one-time thing." Camilla, we see the profile of Camilla and Billy on this couch. And Camilla's just sitting there with her hand over her mouth, like trying not to react. But Billy, he's he's been sort of she's sort of not moving and he's nodding his head like he still stands by everything he said in this interview, and he looks over at Camilla and she's not nodding her head too. That's a problem. And Camilla and Billy have been holding hands through this conversation, but at the point where he says this was more of a one-time thing, she's sort of like she's sort of like knocking his hand against, I don't know, maybe his leg. And she's sort of fiddling with her mouth. She's so many things she wants to say, but she's not saying them. Billy sees it all. And the interviewer's like, "Well, I, for one, I'm sorry to hear that." The weatherman, this is so good, this dialogue for the weatherman. "So moving on to weather, we're looking at some mild temperatures." Okay, this isn't a heated conversation yet. Billy sees that Camilla can't even look at him. He's like, "What's that face for?" She's nothing. He's like, "What? What? I want to know." She's like, "Nothing. No, she knows he doesn't really." He's like, "No, tell me." She says, "Well, I mean, you could have given her a little credit, right?" The weatherman says, "There's a very slight chance of rain, as the National Weather Service is monitoring a tropical dot dot dot." Camilla looks at Billy. Billy doesn't even know what to say. He starts to form a word and then stops. He's like, "Pfft." And Camilla's like, "Okay." She leans in to kiss him on the cheek. She says, "Don't ask for my opinion if you don't want it." She gets up and leaves him feeling like crud. She says, "Love you. I'm gonna go get ready for the party tonight." Um, interview Camilla says, "Look, you've got to have an ego to be a rock star, right? It's what makes him good. But I wasn't gonna let his ego stop him from being great." The interviewer says, "So what did you do?" Camilla smiles. She says, "Well, everybody needs a little push sometimes." Okay, we'll get to that in a second. Bonus points to the weatherman um, for getting us almost to the point of a tropical storm and then reeling us back in. um, again, Billy isn't flying off the handle here with Camilla. Camilla has a way of being strong enough maybe to prevent that, but also Karen planted the seed. This isn't the first voice saying this. And he has been processing it. His wheels have been turning. He probably knows there's some truth to what Karen said, and it's being echoed by Camilla. And I don't know. He's not there yet, but there's a lot that he has to swallow to get to the other side on this one. Um, but yeah, Camilla's saying, "Yeah, like you could have given her a little of the credit." Is sort of whatever he's been saying to himself to justify how he approached the interview. She's like, "Yeah, that's what you've been saying, isn't it? Sorry, not it." All right. So there is going to be a party. It's going to be an important party. Graham and Karen are going to walk to this party. Boy, are they chummy in this episode. This friendship has grown so close. Graham's laughing. Karen's like, "Well, let's just say we took a vote." Graham's like, "Well, what if Daisy should join the band?" Red alert for Graham. Karen's like, "Yeah, but not what Billy thinks, what you think." Graham's like, "Whoa. Well, I think whatever's good for Billy is good for me." This tells you everything about this tells you everything about Graham, right? For Karen to be like, "You have your own mind, you can speak your own mind, you're your own person." And some people, if Karen were to say that to some people, they'd be like, I am my own person. I'm not saying this because Billy would say it. They'd squawk and they'd be like, "No, this was always my opinion." Graham goes the other direction. He's like, "Whatever's fine for Billy is fine for me." I am just a proxy while he's already in the room. I'm a second. Whatever his vote is, I vote second. Um, I mean, this tells you a lot about Graham, right? Um, I think that also has a lot to do with why Karen's not attracted to him here, right? She's really strong and like she'll speak her mind. She'll go right up to Billy and she'll say exactly what she thinks. She's found delicate enough ways to do it. And she can say straight to Graham's face, stop being Billy's sideshow. Like Graham will take it. Like, I don't know. Karen's so strong and Graham is just so like not a person. Like he's totally willing to not have a mind of his own. And I don't know if Karen can respect that. Um, I mean, he's a person. He doesn't speak up and he doesn't even want to. I don't know. I don't know if that's workable for Karen. But anyway, so all right. Karen just groaned. She was like, enough, enough with you and the Billy obsession. Graham laughs. She's walking right next to him. I mean, like, there's it's one thing to walk next to a person, and it's another thing to like be bumping into them, and her jacket's falling off. She's like, oh my God, put my jacket back on. He's like, it's not going to stay. She says, no, I need shoulders on this. It's the look. So now he has to physically adjust her outfit and touch her. I don't know. What is she trying to do here? What is she trying to do? This will be a question at the end for all of you. Okay, so they walk into the house. They're very chummy. Camilla's watching their whole entry into the house, and she's been smiling at this. They get into the house. Karen says hello. Camilla comes in. She greets them. Karen's like, are we the first to arrive? Camilla says, yes, you are. Thank goodness, because I'm not ready. She hands Karen a whole an armful of stuff. She says, can you go put these things on the table? And put rocks on them so they don't turn into kites. Karen says, okay, rocks. Right. She goes out. She goes to do it. Camilla thanks her. And Graham goes to follow Karen because, of course. And Camilla grabs him and pulls him back. She says, hi. She's got this face that says, spill it. Spill all of the details. Graham's wide eyed. He's like, hello. She says, so we're going to talk about it? He says, talk about what? She says, what's going on with you two? Graham says, nothing. She says, nothing. Oh, okay. Graham says, no, I'm not going to talk to you about it. Camilla says, do you want to hear my advice? Graham says, no, I don't. She says, tell her how you feel. That wasn't a question. That, my friend Graham, was a rhetorical question. And because you have no ability to speak your mind and stand your ground, you're going to get railroaded by all of these women. I was like, do you want to hear my I'm going to tell you. You have to speak your mind. He says, no, I'm not going to. He has this face of like, absolutely not. What a horrific thing to suggest. She says, come on, Graham, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I understand this. Graham says, well, the band breaks up and everybody hates me and I look like an absolute idiot. Camilla's like, seems kind of worth it to me. I understand the catastrophic thinking here from Graham. I used to do this as a gymnast. There were some gymnasts that you could go to when they were afraid of a skill, and the coach would say, "What's the worst thing that could happen?" And they'd be like, "Oh, that's a good point. Huh, didn't think of it that way. I should just do it." And they'd go and do it. When I was asked that question, I had a list of very specific things that could happen, that could go wrong, that would mostly end in paralysis. And my coaches learned not to use this technique. They would only ever do that once. I had a series of coaches at different stages and different levels. They would only do it once each. Graham has some catastrophic thinking. And to be fair, this band is the livelihood for everybody he currently knows except his mom. So it's kind of a big deal that they not break up and that they continue to be able to perform. So, like, if there's weirdness because of Karen, it is higher stakes than Camilla's making it out to be. I get Camilla's point, but I get Graham's too. Okay, we're gonna then see. So now Camilla has planted the seed for Graham. You just have to plant a seed for these Dunn boys, is what you do. Karen and Graham are now outside. They're setting the tables. Karen's like, wow, this place is gorgeous. It is a really cool backyard. Very interesting. They found this backyard where it's like, it looks like it's built onto a hill or into a canyon. So they there's like levels of the yard that are already built in, but also Billy and Camilla surely cannot afford landscaping. So it's not like perfectly manicured, but the features of it are sort of so built into it that it's just beautiful anyway. And it makes for this really cinematic quality and also feels realistic to like they probably can't do a lot to maintain it and it still looks okay. So Karen's kind of reflecting on the house, the place in general. Graham's like, "You want one?" I guess he means a house. Karen's like, "Yeah, I need to get away from that place." Their house? Is that what I'm supposed to be interpreting this conversation to mean? He says, so I don't know, we just get that little bit, but anyway, he goes back to her. I don't know if I needed that little bit of a scene, but here we are. Okay, Camilla and Billy are setting up another table. He can't look at her. He's like been getting all these women have been chirping these really important truths in his ear, and he's like, "Mm." He's still processing it. He's trying to make peace with it. He's hearing it from more than one person. Uh, so he can't really look at Camilla. He's lost in thought. She sees that. She gets right in his face, and it's like she sort of gets cute about it. She's like, "Hey." He's like, "Hey." She says, "You good?" She smiles at him in a cute way. He says, "Yeah, I'm good." She's like, "Okay." She chuckles. She gives him a kiss. She's like, "Good boy." And he's like, "All right, what's next?" She's gonna let him unwind a little bit because she's got a surprise in store for him. So he's gonna be riled up again real soon. We're gonna get the opening notes of another song. So there's a song called I think "With a Song" by Tacoma. And not again another I think more recent, more contemporary song. We see the sun going down on the skyline, and Eddie and Warren are with a couple girls at the party. And he's like, "See that over there? That's where Crosby used to live." He's pointing to that place, and then he's like, "And over there, Lookout Mountain." And that's where Mama C lived. And the girl's like, "Who lives there now?" Warren's like, "Oh, Dr. Kastenbaum. He's a podiatrist, a really cool guy." That's a name you can drop as well, Warren. Uh, there it is. And he's like, "Who's thirsty?" They all laugh. They go inside. So, Eddie and Warren definitely Tweedledee and Tweedledum, heartbeat of the track. They tend to be paired a lot together, and here they are double dating. They're going to go into the house. We're going to see Camilla holding a camera. She's sitting next to a very gloomy Billy, who is the least fun person at this party currently. She kisses him and gets up because she doesn't want to be sitting next to gloomy Billy anymore. She goes to Graham, who's chatting with a guy right next to where Karen is chatting with another woman. He just can't get away from he can't he has to be physically close to her at all times. Camilla gives him a knowing look. She looks back at Karen. She's like, "He's still chicken?" Graham says, "Don't you have to pour drinks for people or something?" Kamala says, "Yes, yes, I do." And she sort of pats him on the shoulder and she goes away. She's just like, I was just here to water that seed that I planted earlier. That's it. He looks back at Karen and thought, "Oh boy, poor Graham." All right. Daisy pulls up in a yellow cap. She's holding a pineapple and a bottle of wine. Oops, until the wine drops and the whole bottle breaks. She's like, ah. She shouts an expletive. Now she's just got a pineapple. She approaches the house. She comes in. We're going to see Billy and Camilla. They're in the living room. They're laughing. It looks like Camilla wore Billy down, and he's not the gloomiest person at the party anymore for the moment. Camilla sees Daisy, and she goes to her. She's like, "Daisy, oh my God." And Billy's smile fades. Yep, we had about 2 seconds. He's back to being the gloomiest person at the party. Daisy's like, "Hi," to Camilla. Camilla says, "Hi, I didn't think you would come." Daisy is assessing the situation, she's talking to Camilla, who's clearly very happy to see her, but she's also noticing that Billy is very uncomfortable, clearly didn't know she was coming, and is not happy to see her. Daisy is explaining to Camilla, she's like, I brought a pineapple. She gestures with it. Here's the pineapple. Apparently, it's a traditional housewarming gift, or so says Hawaiian Airlines in Flight magazine. Billy is smoking. He's watching all of this unfold. He's staying back. He hasn't greeted Daisy. Well, it's like, it's wonderful. Daisy says, I also brought a bottle of wine, but I dropped it on the floor. She sees Billy actively avoiding her, and she's getting distracted by that, and she's a little confused by that. Clearly, she got the call from Camilla, but I think she probably thought Billy had signed off on this. Um, but it doesn't seem like he did. Also, I can't see this scene without thinking of Dirty Dancing. Baby walking into the the after hours staff party and saying, I carried a watermelon. And here's Daisy who comes in with a pineapple. It, please tell me somebody else has that association with this as well. Okay. And anyway, if you didn't before, maybe now you do. So you're welcome. Camilla says, oh, it's okay. It's okay. We've got wine and beer. What do you want? What do you do? Would you need anything? Billy is watching all of this, being very avoidant. And now Daisy is just like off put by it. She's like, no, I'm good. Camilla says there's a whole bar situation behind the kitchen. You want to say hi to the band? Daisy's like, sure, yeah. She turns as Camilla's sort of like encouraging her to go towards the bar. Daisy's walking away from Billy, but looks back and says, hi, Billy. Like, are we not saying hi? Um, Camilla goes to follow Daisy. Billy pulls her back because he's got a bone to pick with Camilla now. He says, Cam, what the hell is she doing here? Camilla says, I invited her. Billy says, and why? Camilla says, to see if she'd come. And because I want to meet her. And she says it so cutely in his face. I have feelings about this actually. Um, I'm just debating. I want to ask the question to all of you at the end of this. Like, how do you feel about this move from Camilla? She gives him a little peck on the cheek. She walks away. Billy is so anxious and he's smoking. I look, Billy did not seem to be getting there on his own, but I think had Karen and Camilla kept planting these seeds, they would have worn Billy down. And Teddy, maybe? I don't know. Maybe Teddy's accepted that these two things need to be different entities, this Daisy and the Six. But I don't know. In my life, I don't like people surprising me like this. Like, it's, I don't know. I feel like there's I don't want to say disloyalty with Camilla, but I do feel like don't do a thing like this behind my back. If I were in Billy's position, I'd be furious. Um, like to invite Daisy to the party and not tell him uh feels like an overstep. And I get what we're setting up here, and I get we have to bring these characters together. And I think um if it if I were in Billy's position, I would want the Camilla in my life to either respect a boundary I had put out there, or if you think it's a really bad business decision to have that boundary there, have conversations with me about it. That's my personal feelings on it. And so when I see Camilla doing something like this with Billy, I'm inclined to say, Camilla, that's an overstep. This wasn't the way. I mean, is all well that ends well here? I don't know. Maybe. I don't know. What do you all think about it? That's I'm reading it the way I would read it in my life, and maybe you'd read it a totally different way. But okay, so we're going to see a backyard full of people. The landscaping, once again, for the like, I love as you know, as the light's starting to change in the backyard. I love that it's really like bringing it out on different levels. Daisy's alone at the bar. She's grabbing a beer. Billy finally approaches to say hi. He says hi, very awkwardly. Daisy turns to him. He says, I guess I owe you an apology. I guess. Daisy is quiet and smiling, and she says, "You guess?" Billy says, "I said some things after the festival, and I'm sorry about that." She nods. He says, "Anyway, thank you for playing with us. The crowd seemed to love it." So Daisy says, "You're welcome. It's always the pleasant one." Billy says, "And thank you for coming tonight." Daisy has a sip of beer, and she's got this look on her face like, and he sees the thing is, when she lifts the beer to drink it, she exposes the bandage on her wrist, which could easily look like she had tried to slit her wrist. If you're Billy, it's a little bit of an alarming thing to see her raise that up and to see a bandage right there in that way. And to his credit, he keeps it cool. He says, "What happened to your hand?" She clears her throat. She says, "I cut it. I was trying to break into my parents' house." Billy smiles in this way that's like, "I'm smiling because you're lying to my face, and I'm just not interested in having a conflict right now." It sounds like a lie, what she's saying, even though we know that it's not a lie. Daisy says, "Turns out they don't live there anymore." I think it helps that she added a little bit more information to it. And perhaps Karen could vet this, maybe. But I mean, from Billy's standpoint, he could be thinking, this woman tried to take her own life and isn't sharing that with me. There's a complexity to seeing some, like, it's a lot. Billy, I think, also isn't he doesn't really want to get into all this, to be honest. Um, Interview, Billy says, "Daisy was talented. There was never any question about that." The interviewer says, "Well, what was the question then?" And he pauses. "What was the question then, Billy?" What's he thinking when she tells what sounds to him like this lie, especially when she's been lying to us for so much of the episode? Um, and like, what else is he thinking about her here? They've had so much conflict. Um, she goes totally rogue. Like, she's seen him so clearly. Like, there's a lot of elements that are mixed into this stew. We go back to this party scene. Billy is very reluctantly in this conversation. He says, a lot of people are talking about us making more music together." Daisy says, "Oh yeah?" And is what she seems to be thinking. Billy says, "What do you think about that?" Daisy says, "Well, do you want me to join your band?" He chuckles a little. He blinks. He hasn't exactly said yes. He's like, "I mean, sure." I mean, it's like pulling teeth. It doesn't seem like a person who wants her to join the band. She says, "Why?" He doesn't have an answer for her. The answer is basically because Camilla and Karen are telling me that's the best thing for the band. But he doesn't really want her in the band. Daisy says, "That's what I thought." She walks away and she leaves the party. She doesn't just walk away from him. She walks out of the house. She gets all the way out the front door, and Camilla comes running out of the house after her. Camilla says, "Daisy, hold on a second." She runs up to her. Daisy has nowhere to go at the moment because there aren't cell phones, and she hasn't called a cab before storming out of the house. There is no taxi rank if they're still in Laurel Canyon. So Daisy has to go back to Camilla and say, "Would you mind calling me a cab?" Camilla says, "Why don't you come back in for a little?" Daisy says, "He doesn't want me here." Camilla says, "That doesn't matter. I want you here. You changed my life, my family's life. We wouldn't even have this house if it wasn't for you, Daisy." Daisy looks at the house. She considers that for a second. Daisy says, "Look, this is very sweet." She sort of grabs Camilla's shoulder and, like, an affectionate, she has this sort of like claw hand, but she still grabs it affectionately. Um, and she does the claw thing with her hand quite a bit, actually. Riley Keough, when I don't know if this is always how she holds her hands or if this is just how she holds her hands as Daisy, but when she was on stage earlier and she was raising her arms, she had sort of like a scoop hand. Um, it wasn't like a ballet dancer hand. It was just like this, I don't know, pause sort of thing. Anyway, I don't know why I noticed these things. These are the things I notice. Okay. So she says, look, this is very sweet. I appreciate this, but I don't like him and I have somewhere I have to be. Camilla says, no, you don't. I mean, look, I don't know. Maybe you do. Maybe you put on an outfit and called a cab and bought us a pineapple just so you could come here and say hi and leave. Or maybe there's a part of you that really wants to see where this can go. If you leave now, you're never going to know. None of us will. She puts her hand on her heart. Daisy says, he's really lucky to have you. Camilla won this battle. Camilla smiles. Daisy's going to come back into the party. So now we're going to see Karen and Graham talking at the party. Karen's keeping it all business here. She says, when you get your guitar fills on, it's going to be like the lights go out, the power goes out. Bunch of people groan. Karen's like, what the hell? The power's out. She goes to find Camilla. Meanwhile, Graham was standing there thinking, oh, this is the moment. We get to have this romantic moment in the dark where I grab her and I kiss her, or I tell her my feelings in the dark and she can't see my face and I can't. You know, he was like processing all of these things, right? But instead, she leaves the conversation to go find Camilla after having a professional conversation about his guitar fills. He's in the friend zone. Okay. Meanwhile, Camilla's getting supplies from a drawer, a bunch of candles. She's got Eddie next to her. She says, here it is. My mom is crazy paranoid about earthquakes, so she made us buy all this stuff. Here, I'll light, you distribute. So she's lighting candles. He's going to get an armful of lit candles and start handing them out. So that means we're going to get some really cool lighting here coming up in this scene, because now we're going to have the lighting is really coming primarily, that we can tell, is primarily coming from people who are holding candles. I don't know if there was any other light that they were trying to filter in on set, if they had something kind of low level that they were shining here. They must have. This is just beautiful the way they got this house. And this house with the balcony looking down into the living room and then the candles, just gorgeous. So it's this beautiful ambiance. Daisy is walking through the house in the dark with people holding candles around, lighting her way. And she hears a baby crying. She gets to the foot of the stairs, that go up to the next floor. And she's stopped right by a light switch. And over the light switch, there's a sign, there's a little sticker that says, keep smiling. But who do we hear? Julia crying. She goes upstairs. Julia is crying in her bed. She stands up in her crib. And Daisy goes to Julia. And it's tricky, right? Because Daisy hasn't really been exposed to babies or little kids. She doesn't have a younger sibling. She doesn't have people in her world. She doesn't know what to do with this baby. But she sees this young child in distress. And her first instant, I mean, there's a little bit of, I think, resistance and fear there of, what do I do? I shouldn't be the one seeing this. She sort of, but I see in Daisy this instinct of like, this child is crying. She like puts her hand over her mouth and she's like, I can't let this stand. So she goes over to the crib. She grabs Julia. She grabs her comfort blanket. A lot of compassion, a lot of good, quick thinking there for somebody who probably has had no experience with little kids. And she brings Julia down into the party and she's shushing her all the way down. It's okay. It's okay. Shh. She gets down to the party. Billy is talking to a couple of the guests. He's asking if they're good for a drink. He's like, it means crazy, today of all days. And then he sees Daisy with Julia. And Daisy comes up to him. She hands Julia off to Billy. She's like, I'm sorry, she was crying. And Billy instantly switches into dad mode. Like, whatever there was between Billy and Daisy, the tension there is instantly diffused by the presence of Julia. Julia sort of softly crying to help back up what Daisy was saying. Billy smooths Julia's hair. He's like, hey, baby, you okay? She sobs a little. She stops. He's like, it's all right. Hey, you a little afraid of the blackout, sweetie? It's okay. You're going to have to stay down here with me because daddy is too. And Daisy is watching all of this and she's smiling because it's the first time she's really seeing a softness to Billy. The closest he'd really gotten with her is him trying to give her a pep talk right before the Diamond Head Festival show. But I think Billy thought that was coming from a well-intentioned place, but Daisy didn't want to have to be talked down to in that situation. And so this is the first time that, there's like not a status thing. It's just a softness and a human moment. And Daisy's getting a chance to see that. Uh, Julia's kind of calming herself down by staring at Daisy. And he says, I think she likes you. Yet another woman in his life who seems to be trying to turn his mind around about Daisy. Um, and he says, thanks, I appreciate it that she brought Julia down. Daisy smiles genuinely and she says, sure. So many times in this episode, Daisy has smiled at Billy in a pleasant way, even though they were actually having a moment of conflict. But this time she feels genuine. And then we get this moment, this ooh la la moment, where Karen starts playing the piano in the dark with all the people holding candles. Daisy and Warren and everybody is watching. Some people are shushing so they can hear Karen playing. It's very peaceful. The camera pans up from behind Karen to looking up at the balcony at Billy and Camilla and Julia all swaying together. Daisy is watching Karen. Warren is looking at Daisy. They're all trying to get a read on everything here. Eddie and Graham are smoking on the couch and then they start grabbing their guitars. We're going to hear Karen singing Poor Old Granddad. I laughed at all his words. Warren grabs some bongos. Daisy starts snapping along. I thought he was a bitter man. He spoke of women's ways. We start getting the guitar coming in here. They'll trap you, then they use you before you even know. We see Camilla and Billy on the balcony, smiling, looking down. For love is blind and you're far too kind. We see a wider shot now of Daisy in the crowd, and we see that Billy is actually looking at her while holding his baby. This is a really, I don't know, this feels like a moment of deep connection to me between these two. They're sizing each other up, I think. For love is lying, you're far too kind to ever let it, don't ever let it show. I wish that I knew what I know now. On this line, Daisy joins in. She's looking up. It seems to be in the direction of Billy. I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger. Billy's looking back at Daisy. I wish that I knew what I know now when I was stronger. We start hearing more voices at the party, and then Billy hands Julia off to Camilla and comes down to sing with Daisy. And there are some specific camera choices here that I love and give me a very specific read on this scene. This scene gives me chills. I just love hearing this whole group singing together. Daisy's singing, and you want her lips, you get her cheek. It makes you wonder where you are. Billy and Daisy, Billy's now joined Daisy in the living room, and they're singing together. If you want some more and she's fast asleep, then she's twinkling with the stars. Poor young grandson, there's nothing I can say. You'll have to learn just like me. And that's the hardest way. They're singing to each other now. Ooh la la, ooh la la. The whole party is singing. Camilla is up on the balcony, looking down, smiling, and watching them. Ooh la la. Karen is stoked playing the piano. She just created this moment. Ooh la la, yeah. Um, I wish that I knew what I know now when I was younger. We repeat that line. The song ends. Everybody's smiling. Daisy looks like she feels she found a family. She looks like she was completely alone and now she's in a room full of people and she feels seen. She feels part of it. Billy isn't as effusive. Everybody else is smiling and happy. And Billy, it's like, if I'm 100% happy, then I've accepted an outcome I don't actually want. So he has to mute it. Here's what I love about the camera work here. When we get down in the party on the living room floor with Daisy and with Warren and with Karen, and when Billy joins them, we've got this really cool, like, handheld camera in the dark, getting up in people's faces, a little bit shaky, like you're one of the people at the party standing right next to these people while they're playing. I feel like I'm in this party. It's still, the power's out, it's dark, the candles are the only thing lighting this space. The moment when the camera looks back up at Camilla, who's now standing alone holding Julia, Billy's not with her anymore because he's standing next to Daisy. Camilla is better lit. I don't think the camera is handheld here. It's much more stable and it feels like a shot that they set up. I don't feel like I'm there with Camilla. I feel like I'm on the floor in the party and I see Camilla and she's far away and she's not part of the experience that I'm having. Those handheld shots bring me all the way into the party. I literally feel like I'm a party goer standing next to these people. It just gives me chills. I love the scene. And then Karen loves the scene. She's so excited she has to talk to Graham about it. Power's still out. She drags him through the house. She's got Graham in a headlock. She takes him out of the room. She says, "What have I been saying this whole time?" Graham's laughing. He's like, "Yeah, yeah." And she says, "Did you feel that? Did you hear it?" She's so excited. He's like, "Yeah, okay, all right. You're right." She says, "It's so good." They're alone. He's looking at her. She's breathless. She's like, "What?" He thinks this is his moment. He kisses her. And she laughs awkwardly. She's like, "Sorry, sorry." He's embarrassed. He's like, "No, I'm." She says, "I just, no, you surprised me." That's not good. That's not a good sign. She sighs a little bit. Graham gets serious. And this is a fair thing. He says, "I mean, you know that I've always, ever since that first night at the staircase." She's a little awkward because she does know that he's had a crush on her this whole time. She says, "I know." He chuckles a little bit weakly. He's like, "It's never going to happen for us, is it?" Karen says, "I think you're amazing." Ah, ah, ah. Graham. Oh, my heart bleeds for him. He looks down, she leaves, he reels. He's like, he physically does this. The lights come back on and people cheer. It was all supposed to be so magical when the power went out. But first she ran off to Camilla. Then she has this amazing moment that she wants to share with him and in a completely platonic way because he's amazing. Ugh. He just leaves the scene and we're gonna fade to Simone in New York. Okay, I just want to say, like, she's she acknowledges that she's known this entire time that Graham has a crush on her. I feel like I'm not saying she's led him on, but if you're trying to set a boundary with the person who has crushes on you, you're not putting your hand on their heart when they're high. You're not bouncing up against them as you're walking down the street. Like there's stuff that she's doing here that feels like a step beyond what she needs to do that could be encouraging this line of thought for him. And I wish she wouldn't be doing that for his sake. What is she getting out of that? I don't know. Discuss. I am going to pose that question at the end of this because I want people's reads on this. I just if she knew, like either say something or don't feed into it to create the situation where they will say something. Okay. Um but we fade from Graham to Simone arriving in New York on the bus on the Greyhound. It took her a long time to get to New York from LA. So here we are at the end of the episode, and we now know we're going to get more Simone. So if you were crying because you didn't want to say goodbye to Simone, you can smile again because we're probably going to get more stuff of her. She does come off of the bus with her one suitcase. So she really did come with one suitcase, and she grabs Bernie's address. We go back to the party because Graham, he's sitting alone now, smoking. He doesn't want to spend more time with Karen. He's not going to be finding ways to have conversations with or near her. He's alone, smoking. And we're nearing the end of the party. Not as many people are there. Some girl comes up to him, Caroline, and she says, "Hey, you in the band?" And he says, "Yeah." She says, "Oh, I thought so. I'm Caroline." He introduces himself. They shake hands. And Camilla sees this exchange. She smiles a little bit and walks to the front of the house. I mean, Camilla's really perceptive. She probably has a read on why Graham's sitting alone. And well, at least there's this other person here to be there with him. Meanwhile, Billy, so Camilla walks to the front of the house. Billy is sitting in the car with Julia. The engine is idling. I guess it's a quiet place. The house hasn't been quiet. And it's a place where maybe just the sound of the engine idling is calming Julia. And I guess she's all the way asleep now. So Camilla joins him in the car. And she like very carefully tries to close the door, and they're both like, ah, don't wake the baby. And Camilla says, it's not just the engine. She really feels safe with you. And Billy looks down at the baby lovingly, but he's lost in thought. He's been helping his baby get to sleep, and he needed to be in the car alone to think a little bit. Camilla says, "Can I say something?" Billy says, "Sure." She says, "Billy, you and Daisy." He says, "I know." She says, "No, but it's exactly what you wanted. It's exactly what you need to get where you want to go." He says, I know." And he nods, and then he says a third, "I know." And the camera pulls around to the side of the car and looks through the window, and she's smoothing his hair. He can't even look at her. He feels tortured about this. It seems like the thing he's supposed to do, but he doesn't want to do it. And Camilla says, "Hey, look at me, look at me." And he says, "What?" She says, "I'm going to love you no matter what, okay?" Billy says, "Okay." So in the morning, Daisy slept there. She wakes up on a couch in her party clothes, and she hears some clanking around in the kitchen. Daisy's like, "Ah, what did you put in those Mai Tais?" She comes over to the pass-through window where Camilla's on the other side. Camilla laughs. She says, "Good morning." She gives Daisy some coffee, always taking care of people. Daisy looks at Camilla, really, really seeing Camilla. Camilla chuckles. Daisy's like, "What?" Camilla says, "I don't know if I need to say this, but I'm going to just in case." Daisy's waiting. Camilla's earned the right to be heard here. Billy and I, and Warren and Graham and Eddie and Karen, we're a family, Daisy. And families, they take care of each other. Daisy says, "Do they?" And Camilla's kind of unclear on what that reaction was. What's that pushback about? Daisy says, it hasn't been my experience. It Daisy doesn't really say it in our sarcastic way. She says it like, "Boy, there's a story here." And Camilla's like, "What's the story there?" Camilla nods. She says, "Well, this family does. We'll take care of you. You take care of us, okay?" Daisy nods. Camilla drinks her coffee, and Daisy watches as Camilla gets to work. Um, Interview Camilla says trust isn't easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest things you will ever have to do, but you have nothing without it. So, yeah, I chose to trust them. Did I make a mistake? I don't know. You tell me. Here we are at the end of the fourth episode, and the show has said, "Look, we've set the whole thing up, and now we want you to know fireworks are coming." So, like, we're gonna leave off with Camilla giving us this, "Did I make a mistake? I don't know. You tell me." Like, there's plenty left to share in this story. So let's you be the judge after you've seen it all. I think it's so interesting that Camilla has officially stamped the form that says Daisy gets to be in this band, and Camilla is the only person in this show who has no vested business belonging in this band. She's not in the band. She's not Daisy. She's not Teddy. Like, she's other than Simone, she's like, she's tangential to the band. She's important to the culture of the band. She's certainly been very important. But the fact that it is Camilla saying to us, "Daisy's in the band now," is wild to me. And, goes to show you what an authority she has in this group. And she's sort of given her personal sign off on it. It's like, whatever Billy may say, I've already made the decision for him. Now, granted, he just went ahead and rented a house, picked a whole house, rented it for her with his $600 check. So, I I mean, okay, touche. You get it, Camilla. But yeah, it's interesting. People, huh? People taking power where they need it. Interesting to me. Look, she knows Billy needs a nudge here. Hmm, Has she done too much? Maybe for me. Maybe it's the pace. Maybe it's the give Billy a little more agency over something like this. But ah, we're actually have a vote from the band. Because who wasn't consulted in this process? Granted, like, I think maybe the audition is Ooh La La, right? And Diamond Head and all of these things, right? Maybe people's effusive enthusiasm over the reaction to singing with Daisy is and playing with Daisy is the only thing that you need. But maybe. just check in with Eddie and Warren and Graham and Karen, who's been making her feelings very clear. Um, but yeah, pull the audience a little bit here. But yeah, that's episode 4. In terms of music, again, I've touched upon these things along the way, but we start off with Dancing Barefoot, the main title song or the opening credits song by Patti Smith. We get Satellite of Love by Lou Reed. We get Take a Chance on Us by Joshua Spears, who was in the episode singing the song by a different name. Sweet Emotion by Aerosmith, With a Song by Tacoma. Ooh La La by Faces, but we didn't hear, we heard the band singing it with Daisy. From Daisy Jones and the Six, we've got Look at Us Now. We've got from the Six, Flip the Switch and Look Me in the Eye, sung with Daisy. From Simone, it's Simone's song. It's called Up to You. And from Daisy, we get Type of Guy, or at least a little piece of it. Okay, favorite quote. Ooh, there are some ones I really enjoy, but there are a few that I'm going to put on the favorite quotes list officially. 2 of them are honorable mentions. I'm going to start with an honorable mention from Billy. What I'm saying is, I don't think we'd survive her. Fair. And it brings us back. A line like that sends us in both ways in terms of time travel. It brings us to the beginning of the show where we opened with saying, here's this performance that they did in 1977. It was it was a sold out crowd and it was the last performance they'd ever have. And Billy's walking off the stage. They're showing us clips from that. Doesn't look good. And Billy saying, I don't think we'd survive her takes us back to that. But that was meant to be a flash forward to the future as well. So it sends us in all directions on the timeline. Okay, another honorable mention from Teddy. What you are is a front man. They already have one of those. Hear what I'm saying? Teddy's saying, you picking up what I'm putting down? I don't think Teddy is going to keep going to bat for this. I think Teddy probably wants this outcome of Daisy and the Six playing together, but I think he needs to let these kids work it out on their own. Okay, favorite quote. I mean, it's not the one that makes me laugh the most because there are ones in this episode that do, and I pointed those out when I got there. But this is important. Camilla saying, maybe there's a part of you that really wants to see where this can go. If you leave now, you're never going to know. Not only does this feel like an important thing for Daisy to hear, I feel like there may be people watching the show who find it important for themselves too. I think this is one of those lines that can translate well beyond the characters in a TV show to people, audience members in their own lives. Okay. Here are my questions for you. And I think I've been starting to raise these first couple along the way, but first of all, I've got to know, okay, Karen keeping it professional with Graham, but also knowing that knowing the whole time that he has a crush on her and some of these really tactile things she's been doing with him. And these moments that she's been growing, she's been so physically close to Graham. Thoughts? I just want to open it up that way. I think Karen, I don't know. It's not all the way that Karen was leading him on for me, but it's too much for me. Like I just, if you don't want this outcome of Graham like professing love to you or kissing you or in some way saying, I have affection for you. If you don't want this awkward moment, there were things that Karen might have been able to do to back off of it a little bit. Maybe this outcome happens anyway. I don't know. But I don't know. Could Karen have done anything differently here? You tell me. Okay. Second question. Camilla inviting Daisy to the party. I just feel like that was an overstep, but what do you think? Was Camilla in line for this? Tell me your thoughts. I will stay open. I know what I would want for myself, but I'm going to be non-judgmental about what we want for these characters, and I'm going to hear you out. So tell me what you think about that particular choice. And the third question, and I know that I'm inviting spoilers with this. So if I if you have an answer to this, that's a spoiler. Just write spoiler at the top so people who are brand new to the show don't continue to read until they get through the whole show. The ooh la la moment gives me chills. It's is it maybe it's the first moment in the show that gives me chills, and there will be more, but it's such a powerful moment for me. So I wanted to ask you, what moments give you chills? Have we seen any so far? Are there more to come? Shout them out in the comments. Just give us a spoiler alert if there's something that's still ahead that we're going to get to. But I'd like to know what makes you feel the way that scene feels for me. And that's episode 4. Can you believe it? Next time, episode 5, like we'll be moving halfway through this thing. And I am so excited to dig into this. This group is together now, and we need to see what happens when we've actually got Daisy more integrated into this band. My goodness, that should be fireworks. I think we've set that up pretty well. So that's all we've got for today. And until next time, everybody, don't be the muse, be the somebody. Bye.